All right, welcome to the Pottery project. In this tutorial, we're going to cover on how to actually create sort of simple to very complex pottery or type of glass, perhaps, using the curves along with the Revolve tool. So you can make something as complex as a glass or a vase or some cool abstract form of some sort. You can see I've got a bunch of these little guys stacked everywhere. And it's very fun and easy to do, and you're going to be able to do 100 of these. So you're going to be cranking them out, and I'm going to share how to do all this. So I'm going to turn these off, just hide these all, and we'll start sort of fresh scene here. And what we're going to do here is we want to be in the curved surfaces shelf. So if you're in the poly modeling shelf, click on the curved surfaces, and then you have the options, the curves, and the curves. The third one here is the one we're going to work with. If you don't have options for your shelves, you can also go to your create menu, go down in the curve tools, and here's that same tool, the CV curve tool, and you can click on it. And the way it works, you basically click and you get a curve. You can kind of see, but once I hit enter, it ends the curve. But you can see in 3D space is very bizarre behavior. It went in quite a distance here when I thought, it was based on the angle, it looked kind of cool. And it wasn't. So the main thing with this tool is you have to do it in a, or you should do it, I should say, in a orthographic view. So I'm going to tap the space bar and then go down to my side view here and tap space bar again. And basically now when I create the curve, and I'll click on the curve tool here and actually just create, I'll just make some craziness here and then hit enter. When I tap spacebar to go out and go back to my 3D view, you'll see we have the curve, basically that S that I just created, pretty much the way I want it to be. Okay, so that will work just fine. So again, tap spacebar, go to the side view here, tap spacebar again to maximize it. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to click on the curve tool, and I'm going to show you how to do it the right way and also how to do it the wrong way with this object here. So we could just click wherever you want, but I like to use the grid here, and you can hold the X key and you can snap to the grid. So as I'm left clicking with the mouse, I'm just holding down the X key each time I want to snap to a point. So if I click there, now if I don't want to snap to a point, I can release the keyboard and basically just click out anywhere I want. And then if I want to snap to a point again, I can hold down the X key and it will snap to that point on the grid. And basically what I'm doing here is just creating a cool kind of curve that goes back and forth, something like this. And I'm going to bring it back in now, all the way down, kind of like a giant S, so to speak. And I'm not going to end it here. I'm going to end it on the axis here. And the reason why, if we end it here, we'll have a hole in our revolve that we're going to end up doing here. So I'll show you what will happen here. Again, I'm going to click on the X and just click here. And then again, when I'm done, I'm going to hit enter. So I've got this funny little shape here. And you might be thinking, what is he doing with this thing? It's kind of strange. But what we're essentially doing is we're using this curve to revolve around and create geometry. Now in the curved surface menu, you have it right here. It's the one that looks like a cup with a spinning little arrow here. And if I click on it, I immediately get a wonderful curve. And you can see the object that has been created with it. I'm going to undo that for a sec. What I want to do is double click on the tool. That brings up all the options. And you can see I've had some other options in here that are different than yours. So I'm going to go to edit and reset the settings so we can go over all these and see them in action. So if you want to follow along just the way I did, hit edit, hit reset settings, and then you have it basically the same way. So with this tool selected, again, I can select the object and I can just click the revolve. So let's just use the default settings and click revolve, and you can see what has happened here. We essentially have this cool cylinder kind of form here that is kind of vase-like, and it has the curve still there, and it has the form here. So if I move the form a little bit out, you can see the curve here. And if I click on the curve and I right click on it and go into its control points, you can do that also by clicking on the modeling toolkit, and you can kind of do the same thing. I can go into control points and I can grab one of these points and start to manipulate that point. So if I move it, notice how it's changing the shape of this form here. So they are still connected. which is pretty cool. So I can reshape this and change it on the fly however I want. If I want to select multiple points here, I can select a couple of them and then drag them down or up or whatever, and have lots of fun creating my shape here. Now, if I want to tap the space bar and go to my side view here, I could do that. I could grab, say, for example, this one, and I'm going to hold the shift key when I select multiple points here, and maybe that one, and I'm going to grab this whole thing and kind of pull it out. And notice how it changes the shape in here, and then you can see it in the 3D view here, that it is making it fatter and fatter sort of bottom, or I could skinny it up here. Pretty fun, right? So this is all happening because this has a construction history to this. Let me go back to object mode on this curve here. And in the channel box here, you'll see a curve shape. And in here on the revolve, if we click on it, we have the inputs of the revolve. So basically, if I double click on the revolve, you'll see sort of a reflection here of this. You'll see the end sweep here, which is 360, which is this value here, this 360. So if I drag this value, nothing seems to happen. But watch what happens when I change this value by clicking on the word and then hold the middle mouse button down inside the viewport here and drag to the left. You'll see I'm essentially removing some of that geometry. So if we type in a value here, say like 90 degrees, you'll see we essentially have 1/4 of like a circle here, right? So that would be it there. If we type in 180, we're essentially going to have like half the circle of the revolve, right? So I just want you to understand there's that construction history to this object, right? That we can go back and forth. It's important to keep that history until you no longer want it. Then there's a way to get rid of it, and I'll show you how to do that later on. I'm going to type in 360 to bring it back. There is also some other options in here. The axes points, which is the Y, has the 1 here. If I type in on the Z, say, and type in a 1, and then type in a 0 for the Y, you'll see I get a completely different kind of form. And that is essentially the same as coming in here, instead of choosing the Y, choosing the Z, right? So if I delete this object temporarily and select this object again, and with the Z selected, click apply, now you can see I have that same form. So that's what's happening. It's revolving on the Z axis. You can see the arrow here, which is this direction, right? Going left to right. The X axis would kind of flatten out and make kind of a weird mess, but we can try it and see what it looks like. So I'll click on the X and hit apply. And you can see what it's doing. It's sort of compressed on itself. It's revolving around this X, so it's making a huge mess. So I'm going to delete that object, select this guy, and I'll go back to the Y here. So we have understood the 360, what that does, right? This little slider here. And the start sweep just basically has a starting point and end point for that 360. The cubic versus linear. Let me click linear and watch what happens when I click apply. You'll see we have a more faceted, almost polygonal quality here, even though this is NURB geometry right now. So if I right click on the object, you'll see it says isoparm, it says surface point control vertex. If I select the object and open up the modeling toolkit and go into the points, you'll see they are sort of extended upwards, these little points. And they do kind of move in a strange way, but this isn't like a polygon model. This is NURBS geometry, so it's going to react a little bit differently. So let's go back to object mode here. Let's go ahead and, again, delete this and select this. This time go back to cubic and click apply, and you can see how much smoother it is, right? So that's pretty clear, those two differences. The segments here. So this is basically, you can kind of think of the segments as the resolution, but it's all how many of these lines are going down. So right now there's currently 8 segments, right? And if we go to the construction history of this object by going to the channel box, click on the revolve, you can see the 8 sections here. So if I click on that word and then middle mouse and drag, I can add more sections. And right now it's got 24. What that's doing is essentially adding more divisions here and smoothing it up. And I can just keep cranking that up to however many I want. You know, I got 56 here. It looks pretty darn smooth. So I'll bring that back down to 8. And so that is this value here. So again, I can start off with a value of, say, 52. And let me go ahead and delete the history on this object, and I'll shove it off to the side so you can see an 8 segment versus a 52 segment. by going to the edit menu, and you go down to delete by type and history. Once I've done that, the construction history is now removed, and I can move this object off. You can see in here in the channels there's no construction history on it. So let's select this object again and click apply with 52, and you can see a difference. You know, there is a difference in terms of the silhouette for sure, right? Especially if I click off, you can kind of see it. Especially when I remove the, I have wireframe on shaded right now. It doesn't look too different there, but you know, once I have the wireframe on shaded, you can definitely see the difference in terms of the resolution. So with NURBS geometry, segments are necessary, but they're not. You can get away with fewer segments for the resolution. I will say that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. Select the shape again, and now let's go over if you want to make this into a polygon shape. So instead of NURBS down here at the bottom, let's bring this segment back down to 8. I can click on polygons, and you'll see lots of options that popped up here. The first ones you're going to want to choose is the type of polygon. And I like to use quads. Those are 4-sided. Triangles are going to kind of create kind of mess. The general and the count are basically an option here for how the tessellation happens. But the first one you want to choose is tris or quads. I want quads. If we want general, you can leave these default settings here and click apply, and you'll see what'll happen here. And it doesn't really do much in terms of what you need to happen. So you need to increase the values here in order for it to get better. So I prefer to use the count controls here. And so if I do that and type in a value of say of like 200 here, let me select this and hit apply. You can see here we have a pretty decent polygon representation of that. Now I had to play around with the setting for the 200. I could go 400 and I get more resolution essentially. So if I delete this one and select this again and hit apply, you'll see you get a slightly smoother result. And if I hit the number 3 key on this, it will be almost as smooth as the NURBS geometry. The nice thing about the option of adding and creating a polygon mesh versus NURBS geometry is now I could treat it like a NURBS mesh. So that's the option that you could choose in here. So I can right click on the object, go to face mode, which is again is same as clicking on the modeling tool, clicking on face, click on a face here, hold the shift key, double click, and I could do something like an extrude. So I could click on the extrude here, and then I could grab the blue arrow and pull out and create some interesting geometry that way. I could then do all the other options. I could scale in this geometry a little bit if I want to do something like that, taper it in. But now it's essentially a polygon object. I can right click, go back to object, or click on this guy to bring it back. Now, is the construction history still there? If I click on this line, and again, right click on it, go to control vertex and select this, hit W and start to move it, you'll see that it is still connected. But what's happening here is because of those extrusions I created, it's definitely creating some problems. So you have to be aware of that when you start to manipulate the polygons. I usually do that at the last moment after I've nailed my shape that I really like. Then I go in and do some extrusions if I want to do some. But for right now, let's reset our settings here. Go to edit, reset settings, bring it all back to standard. NURBS geometry is totally fine for this project. You don't have to get fancy with polygons. NURBS is absolutely perfect. But I just want to share what happens when you don't create the curve correctly. So we have a curve here that's done, just fine. I'm gonna move it back a little bit out of the, or actually let me leave it there, but I'll hide it. I'm gonna actually delete this object. Open up the channel box here, and I'm just gonna click on this, with this selected here, I'm gonna click on this new layer tab. At the far right one, we'll add a new layer, and then I can turn off the visibility there. Okay, so that's the good one. So watch what happens. I'm gonna go to my side view here, and I'm gonna click on the curve tool. And this time, I'm not gonna click on the, with the X key on the bottom here. In fact, I'm gonna go the opposite direction. So I'm gonna click like right here, I'm gonna click here, and I'm just gonna randomly kind of go along here and create something that I think might look cool. Maybe I'll end it to there and hit enter. So let's see what happens here with this object here. I'm gonna bring back the other one just so we can see as a comparison. So again, with this object, if I hit the revolve, we get this kind of geometry, right? And I'll go ahead and delete the history of this. I actually add it to my custom shelf here. I can hit the delete history on that. Again, if you want to delete history though, it's under the edit menu, delete by type, history. Just go there, there, there. So now let's select this object and we'll go back to our custom insert, our curved surfaces, and hit that revolve tool again. And you'll see here that I have a revolve, but there's an opening at the bottom here, right? And that's problematic. So why did that opening happen? Well, if we look at the two pieces of geometry, like if I select this and kind of move it off to the side here, if we look at these two, right, especially the side view here, you can see that they have not lined up with that center line. And that's the problem. That's where you get the hole. So let me show you another problem. I started from the bottom, went around. What I'm going to do is select this object and delete it. This time I'm going to grab the curve tool and I'm going to start the same way. I'm going to click, 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 but I'm starting from the top and then working my way down. And then I'll hit enter. So this looks, not exactly the same as this, but it's similar. So let's see what happens when I do the revolve on this one. So I have it selected. I'm going to click on the revolve and whoa, why is it all black? And if you look inside, wait, there's gray on the inside. What has happened here is the normals have been flipped, the direction. So it's important to be aware of the direction and the path that you go in. So by starting from the inside and going around, right? If I delete this object again, we started from here and went all the way down to the bottom. And again, that's like starting from the inside and going down. That's why it worked that way. It went black. So you always want to start from the bottom and kind of work your way up and then go in. Then you won't have that problem. Doesn't matter which side you go on, as long as you start from the bottom and work your way up and go in there. Now, if you do want harder edges, like the glass had this sort of nice hard edge, I'll kind of delete that one. I'll go to my side view here again, and I'll start with the curve tool again. I can hold down the X and click on here, click on here, click here. So I can do something like this, right? But look, it's not getting hard. It's basically still a rounded edge. If I hit enter, you can see it's still a rounded edge. So it's like, well, that could be kind of rounded, but it's not really round, right? So what you can do is you can create harder edges by changing the curve. So I can double click on this and change it. By default, it's at the cubic. If I change it to linear, watch what happens when I hit the X key on this. So I'm going to hit X and click here, and I'll click here, and click here, and I'll click here. And I'll just have like a square and then hit enter. You can see what has happened is essentially I now have a straight curve instead of this curved one. And so the straight edge one, if I do the revolve, I'll get essentially kind of like a smash cylinder, right? Where if I select this curve, which is sort of rounded, it does go up a little bit, I get more of sort of a rounded base here. So I just want you to understand, if you do want to make geometric things like this, it can be kind of fun and interesting. Let me go ahead and delete all these, and we'll try something with that. Go to our side view again. And again, all I have to do is click on the curve tool. It still remembers the setting I had of the linear. But if you ever do want to change it, just double click on the tool and that will open up the tool settings here. And again, I'm going to hold X, click on the bottom, and then just kind of go up. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of having fun doing these different steps and just try different things here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to end here, and then I'll go down maybe to here. This won't be quite as straight. And end there and hit enter. Now, another thing I want to share is that once you're done, you can right click on it, go to control vertices, and you can actually manipulate these. So if I do want to line this up better, I can start to move it up and line it with that point. If I want to middle click and kind of drag that one over, I can do that and create something like this. So then to go back into object mode, just right click, go to object mode. So let's try this and see what this shape will create. So I select it, click on the Revolve, and look at that. I got some really cool looking table, right? So there's all kinds of fun shapes you can create with these tools using the curve tool with the Revolve here. So have fun, explore, do 100 different of these guys. Later on, I'll show you how to do some, add some textures and materials, and then we'll do some rendering. So until next time, see you soon. Cheers.